Imagine an emperor. His people see him as the voice of the gods. His palace is a paradise filled with gold, jade, and exotic animals. Surrounding him are armies of hundreds of thousands, obedient to every command. But one day, strange news arrives. On the distant shore, pale-skinned, iron-armored strangers appear, as if from another world. Aztec priests whisper in fear, "This is the year the prophecy begins. The god has returned." And Moctezuma decides that this visitor is not a man, but a god. This decision would become the fatal mistake that led to the fall of the Aztec Empire. This is the most tragic, most mysterious story of Moctezuma II. Fact 1. Moctezuma II, the emperor who awaited the apocalypse. The day Moctezuma II ascended the throne, a strange fear gripped the Aztec Empire. Ancient priests had written a prophecy centuries earlier. One day, the god of the past, Quetzalcoatl, will return, and the empire will fall. Moctezuma did not simply dismiss the prophecy. He lived every moment in fear that it would come true. Night after night, he climbed to the highest towers of his palace to watch the stars, noting even the slightest change in the sky. Every earthquake, every lightning strike, every strange cloud was not a mere natural phenomenon, but a sign of the approaching apocalypse. Fear spread through the palace. Priests brought Moctezuma mysterious omens, a temple that burned on its own at night, a glowing ball falling from the sky, a fiery human-shaped apparition appearing on the lake. With each report, the emperor grew more anxious. He even decreed that no one could hide bad omens. He needed to know when the end would come. And the most terrifying thought, Moctezuma believed that this apocalypse would occur during his reign. Every morning he woke, every night he slept. He wondered if tomorrow would be the final day of the Aztec Empire. Then one day, the iron-armored Spaniards landed on the shore, pale, strange, and unlike anyone he had ever seen. Moctezuma was convinced they were the gods of the prophecy, not humans. His fear of the apocalypse became the greatest mistake that would lead his empire to ruin. Fact 2. Moctezuma mistook Cortés for a god. One of the greatest tragedies of the Aztec Empire began with a single misbelief. From childhood, Moctezuma had heard a legend. A pale-skinned, strangely dressed god, Quetzalcoatl, would one day return from distant lands and reclaim his throne. This prophecy had been ingrained in people's minds for centuries. Many believed that the day this god returned, the Aztec world would change forever. In 1519, large ships appeared on the eastern horizon. On board were pale-skinned, bearded men wearing iron armor. At their head was Hernán Cortés. The moment Moctezuma saw him, a strange mix of fear and reverence filled his heart. Cortés' appearance, his beard, even the direction from which he arrived. Everything seemed to perfectly match the ancient prophecy. Moctezuma was convinced. This was Quetzalcoatl, the god himself returning. Instead of treating him as an enemy, Moctezuma invited Cortés into his palace. He offered him gold, precious stones, and the finest chambers. The most powerful ruler of the Aztec Empire had opened the doors of his empire to a conqueror. And this decision would mark the beginning of the empire's end. Because Cortés was not a god, he was a commander intent on conquest. The Aztec Empire, misled by a false belief in a fatal decision, began its path to historical erasure. Fact 3. Even with the strongest army, he hesitated to fight. The Aztec army was the most formidable military force in Mesoamerica at the time. Hundreds of thousands of skilled warriors, unmatched discipline, professional commanders, and a centuries-old tradition of fierce combat had allowed the Aztec Empire to expand and dominate. Yet despite all this power, Moctezuma hesitated to fight. At the root of his hesitation was religious fear. According to Aztec belief, gods sometimes appeared in human form to punish mortals. Moctezuma saw Cortés' arrival as such a divine warning, not as a man, but as the return of Quetzalcoatl. Raising weapons against such a being could curse the entire empire. As a result, Moctezuma did not give open battle orders. The warriors waited, the generals grew uneasy, the people grew frustrated, yet the emperor at the top remained paralyzed by indecision. This hesitation stripped the Aztec Empire of its greatest strength, its army. Thousands of soldiers, fully capable of fighting, remained inactive simply because no orders came. This inaction became a golden opportunity for Cortés and played a decisive role in the empire's downfall. Fact 4. His palace was one of the most luxurious in Mexican history. Moctezuma II's palace was more than just a ruler's residence. It was a magnificent complex symbolizing the wealth and power of the entire Aztec Empire. The palace grounds were vast, featuring pools decorated with colorful stones and ornamental gardens filled with fish and birds. Visitors were mesmerized by the sunlight reflecting off the water, creating a dazzling spectacle. It also included a zoo with exotic animals. Golden foxes, rare birds, capybaras, and other unusual creatures were kept under special protection. This was not only an aesthetic choice, but also a political statement, showcasing the emperor's power and wealth. Furthermore, the palace housed massive libraries and art collections. These contained chronicles of Aztec history, as well as writings on science and rituals. When Hernán Cortés entered the palace, he was overwhelmed by the sheer opulence and beauty. Moctezuma appeared not merely as a king, but as a living embodiment of his empire. The palace also became a prime target for Cortés, as all the wealth and power contained within symbolized both motivation and opportunity for the Spanish conquerors. Fact 5. A mystic leader, observing the night sky. Moctezuma II was not just a political leader, he was a ruler with deep religious faith and mystical knowledge. Observing the night sky from his palace's ornate rooms or special observation platforms was part of his daily ritual. He would study the stars with the help of priests, tracking the movement of stars, the phases of the moon, and the planets. Every star's position, every meteor, and every unusual light was a sign or prophecy for Moctezuma. He believed the sky communicated the future, and the fate of the empire depended on these celestial messages. During these observations, Moctezuma also planned strategic and political decisions, aligning every war order, diplomatic meeting, and palace ceremony with the signs from the sky. Priests interpreted these signs, warning of potential disasters or successes. Thus, Moctezuma was not only a ruler, but also a mystic observer, linking the empire's destiny to the heavens. This mystical aspect of his leadership contributed to both his caution and the eventual fate of the Aztec Empire. Fact 6. He may have been killed by his own people. The death of Moctezuma II remains one of the greatest mysteries in Aztec history. Official sources state he died after being struck by a stone, but historians debate two main possibilities: one killed by the Spaniards. Some sources suggest Hernán Cortés and his soldiers killed Moctezuma, using him as a puppet to conquer the empire more easily and eliminating his influence. Two killed by the Aztecs. Another theory claims Moctezuma was stoned to death by his own people, who saw him as a traitor and a passive ruler for failing to fight the enemy and inviting Cortés into the palace. His death accelerated the fall of the empire. Even today, historians debate the truth. Was he killed by the Spaniards or by the angered Aztec people? Despite the uncertainty, the fact remains: Moctezuma's death was a decisive moment in the collapse of the Aztec Empire. Fact 7. The Spaniards used him as a puppet emperor. When Hernán Cortés conquered the Aztec Empire, he relied not only on military power, but also on political manipulation. He preserved Moctezuma II's influence, using him as a puppet emperor. Cortés held Moctezuma captive in the palace, controlling every decision and decree according to his own interests. On paper, Moctezuma was still the emperor, but in reality, all real power was in Cortés' hands. The Spaniards governed the empire in his name, maintaining Moctezuma's image for the people. For the Aztec people, this was a humiliating insult. Their beloved ruler had become a puppet, unable to defend his own people. In cities resisting Spanish rule, people rebelled, but Cortés cleverly used Moctezuma's authority as a tool to pacify them. This strategy made it easier to conquer the empire and created a tragic situation for Moctezuma. Trapped between his own people and the occupying force, he became not just an emperor, but a figure manipulated in a deadly political game, symbolizing the fate of the empire. Fact 8. After his death, the empire collapsed within 2 years. The death of Moctezuma II marked the decisive beginning of the Aztec Empire's end. He had lost the confidence of his people as both a political and religious leader. His absence left the empire vulnerable to total devastation. The capital city, Tenochtitlan, was systematically besieged by the Spaniards over the course of 2 years. As both a military and political center, it was utterly destroyed. Massive temples and palaces were reduced to ashes, while administrative and civic buildings were leveled. Hernán Cortés and his armed forces did not merely aim to capture the city, they executed a carefully organized, destructive strategy to completely dismantle Aztec leadership. A large portion of the population was killed, and the survivors were taken as prisoners, while Spanish rule was imposed over the devastated empire. Within just 2 years, the political structure of the empire was completely destroyed, and its cultural and religious life was shattered. After Moctezuma's death, Aztec civilization remained only in memories, written records, and archaeological traces, while its wealth, power, and culture were irreversibly lost. Thus, Moctezuma II's death became the starting point for the empire's ultimate collapse, marking the dramatic end of the Aztec civilization in history. Fact 9. His treasure is one of the greatest lost fortunes in the world. Moctezuma II was not only a political and religious leader, but also the owner of an extraordinary treasure. His collection, filled with immense amounts of gold, jade, emeralds, and other precious stones, symbolized the wealth of the entire Aztec Empire. Historical sources indicate that Moctezuma used this treasure for ceremonies, diplomatic gifts, and war offerings. Every object in his palace, gold masks, ornate weapons, and rare stone figurines, was both a display of prestige and a demonstration of power. However, after Cortés's arrival, the fate of this treasure became shrouded in mystery. Some accounts suggest that the Spaniards secretly transported it to Europe or claimed it for themselves. Others believe that the treasure remains lost somewhere in Mexico, possibly hidden in secret caves or submerged beneath lakes. Thus, Moctezuma's treasure remains one of the greatest and most mysterious lost fortunes in history. Its location is still unknown, and the search for it has continued for centuries, making it an enduring source of fascination for historians and adventurers alike. Fact 10. His name still haunts today. Moctezuma's Revenge. Moctezuma II's name is remembered not only historically, but also in modern culture, linked to mystery and astonishing events. Among tourists visiting Mexico, there is a well-known joke. When travelers experience stomach upset, diarrhea, or digestive issues, it is called Moctezuma's Revenge. The phrase humorously suggests that the emperor is still taking revenge, as if punishing those who enter his land. For tourists, it serves as both a funny and mystical cultural metaphor. Moctezuma's Revenge highlights that even centuries later, the emperor's legacy continues to influence daily life and popular culture. Moctezuma II thus lives on as both a historical figure and a mythic symbol whose impact extends beyond his empire. If you found Moctezuma II's story fascinating, mysterious, and full of lessons from history, make sure to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you won't miss any of our future videos where we uncover lost treasures, legendary leaders, and untold stories from the past. Join our journey into history, discover secrets that time tried to hide, and become part of a community that loves exploring the extraordinary. Don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Your support keeps these incredible stories alive. Subscribe now, and let's uncover history together.